This week. This is our weekly interlude with Seattle Chamber Music Society. We're very pleased to be joined by soloist, recitalist, chamber musician, longtime friend of the festival, pianist Andrew Armstrong. Thank you so much for spending some time and chatting with us this week.
Thank you, Seneca. It's great to see you.
Yeah. You know, we always like to start these out by asking and just making sure you're staying healthy, you're staying safe, the family is doing well right now.
Yeah, thanks. We're probably the healthiest we've been in a long time. Thanks for asking.
That's good to hear. And where's home for you? You're just outside of Boston, correct? About an
Yeah,
hour outside.
yeah, exactly. Worcester, Massachusetts. I've been told by the old timers I'm supposed to call it Wista. It's spelled Worcester, but I'm supposed to pronounce it as though it's spelled Wistah.
Excellent. So let's just jump right in here, I guess. You know, we know now that the virtual festival is going to happen here, and you are coming to join us here in Seattle. You know, I know this has been a crazy time. So what was it when, you know, James asked you to come out here that, you know, made it compelling and, you know, I guess so important to make it to Seattle to perform here with other musicians?
Oh, we're all dying to play together. We're dying to play for our friends. We're dying to play for the Seattle community. I've had occasion to ask some colleagues to play some concerts that I'm putting on, and the reaction is fairly universal, a kind of a gasp of relief, and even over the email you can hear the gasp of relief and the saying, I'm just so it's so amazing to be offered to have a real life concert being talked about in the future. And I will say that I think, you know, a lot of us were used to playing several concerts a month, tons of concerts a month, different amounts for different artists. But when the quarantine hit, I think a lot of us, that we had these overdeveloped performing muscles that were suddenly twitchy and not allowed to run. And so I think a lot of us sort of thought, well, we've got to jump on and do little homemade videos, which were of, let's diplomatically say, a wide range of quality levels. But as time has progressed, I think those twitch muscles have slowed down a little bit, and we've just been with our families and such. And people have invested in better equipment and started to get better at figuring things out. And no one's done more for that than James Ehnes. He's turned his home into an incredible recording space, and he's fascinating.
You know, and I know that you and he have actually done several programs, you know, during this quarantine. Is that correct?
One thing that people were doing is recording themselves and then playing together distantly, you know, by playing along with an earbud or something. And I think for the listening public, there was a sense that, well, isn't that cool that someone in Schenectady can play with someone in Sri Lanka? But I was a little concerned as that was developing, because I thought it really gave the wrong idea of what we do. The thing about chamber music that's most precious to me is responding in real time, so that partway through a phrase that the violist is playing, they might become inspired to twist it in a way they've never done before, and you're listening to each other in real time and adapting. It's like a dance. And of course, that's just not possible if one person plays their part, not reacting to the other, then the other one just tries to do exactly what the first one is doing. So I was glad that that's not taken off too much. And when James and I did our previous concert online, he and I each played solos from our homes, and I got two married couples to play so that they were in the same space. And I'm really glad that we are going to be in the same space in Seattle to make real chamber music.
Can you talk a little bit about what you're going to be playing here then this summer? I know you're here for, it's the second week, I believe, of our concerts, and what's on the calendar for you?
Well, I think I must have gotten some brownie points with James, because it's really like a list of my favorite things. It was just I was so excited when he wrote. I thought he was punking me when he wrote me. One thing that I've been bugging him about, like, please, someday can I play the Vaughan Williams piano quintet? Please, someday can I play it at Seattle? It's a newer discovery, like surprisingly recently, and it's the same scoring as the Schubert Trout quintet. So instead of two violins at the top, you've got one violin and a double bass really rounding out the bottom, and it's such an extraordinary piece of music. It's the greatest of British romanticism, that sort of stiff upper lip but unbelievable feeling and emotion and uprightness, and it all builds, the whole piece builds, and just right near the very end, the third movement, the third and final movement, has this long slow crescendo up to this like frenzied moment, and then suddenly drops back just for the final act to something really slow and incredibly intimate and almost reluctant and tender. But then even that grows up, and it leads. I warned Tessa Lark, who's going to be playing the violin part. I said, Tessa, beware, you get one of my favorite notes in all of classical music, because it just, that final act again reaches up, and the violin goes to what has to be the climactic note, and you've got goosebumps all over every bit of skin. And then, in fact, it's proven that the violin has a jump up from that highest note, with apologies to Spinal Tap. And you just, when that note comes, it's so hard for me to keep the tears from gushing from my eyes, because it's a triumph mixed with pathos in a way. It's like, it's the most desperate and desperately triumphant and yet still desperate notes I've ever heard in my whole life. I just can't wait.
That's really good. And then I know you're playing the Dumke and then a Shostakovich piano trio. So a couple other really, crowd pleasers there.
Well, yeah. Well, depending on the listener, I think the Dumke is more universally a crowd pleaser, and the Shostakovich Trio is so devastating, and it's so perfect at accomplishing his expressive goals, but those goals are so devastating in a way that it's almost like someone that walks out of a movie angry at an actor because the actor did such a good job at portraying a horrible villain. I've talked to audience members who are a little upset after the Shostakovich Trio. Almost, how could he put us through that? And I'm really excited for that Shostakovich that we're going to be playing, because I was in the audience listening to a performance of that piece, and Edward Aaron was playing the cello in that performance, and he played. There's a place where the trio gets into this monotonous repetition of this same just horrible, like you can't take it emotionally, and Ed made a sound that was more raw and just really giving every little bit of his soul. It was like no other cello sound I've ever heard, and I remember just feeling this incredible pride that I even knew this human being who's able to play like that, and now I get to play it with him. So that's going to be amazing, and a revisit with Simone Porter, whom I've not played with in a couple of years now, and she's such a great young talent. And then the Dumke, getting to play with James and Ed. Talk about pinching yourself.
This is a very strange time, obviously, where you're not able to tour as you would normally do it. Do you have other projects coming up? I know I think at Aspen, you and James are going to do some of the Beethoven violin sonatas.
Yeah, we'll be doing that. And I think that one is a live stream, if I remember correctly. So great. We'll be in a different place from the audience, but James and I will be together playing that in a live stream. And, it's interesting. Different venues and organizations are moving forward during these strange times with different solutions. So I run well, I'm the artistic director of a series in Columbia, South Carolina at the Columbia Museum of Art. And in Columbia, the museum and the audience members are very bullish about going forward. And I think there's a little concern about the potential of a second wave. And so we are lumping in 3 quick concerts in August, September, October, and those will be in-person concerts.
Wow.
Barring any unforeseen massive spikes.
Course,
And
yeah.
it's interesting, the different solutions that people have come up with. My idea for these concerts has been to make sure that the artists are willing to play the program twice on the same day. We'll have a 3 p.m. and a 7 p.m. so that we can cap the number of audience members coming in. You know, we can kind of divide our audience in two and create some social distancing options where, so that's how we're going. But there are other solutions. I know of another series where they normally have 2 concerts and they're going down to 1 with the thinking that fewer people are going to come because a lot of people will just choose to stay home. And this is a third separate series where they are making a live recording of the concert. If people want to come in, they can and hear the performance live. But if they don't, they could buy a ticket and have a password to watch the recording of that concert later in the week. So it's fascinating how everyone's trying to be creative and respond to their own particular audience. We have different sort of demographics and different geographical realities to deal with. My flight out to Seattle, that's going to be my first flight since, I guess, late February. And so that'll be so interesting. I have no idea really what it'll be like.
Yeah. So when this all started happening, were you out on the road or were you at home at that point? Or, you know, what kind of happened when we first learned about this pandemic spreading?
Yeah, it's funny. I was, I'm very lucky that the venue that I was scheduled to play with in Georgia in early March, you know, I was reading the news and I was really worried about bringing something bad home and it was really kind of on the cusp whether people should be traveling and playing concerts. And I canceled. I said, I don't feel right about coming. And I have asthma and I was extra worried whether that would be, you know, so little was known about the virus. So I canceled and they were so understanding. And they said, well, we're going ahead with the concert and we can find a replacement. And then I think it was 24 hours later when all of them had arrived there, they realized we can't have this concert because we were all finding out so suddenly, really, that tidal wave was washing over us. And to their credit, they managed to put together one of the first kind of live stream concerts of coronavirus really quickly on the fly, and they did a brilliant job.
I'm curious, like, since you have been home, have you established a routine for your day, or, you know, what does a typical day look like as you're either playing and practicing, or have you set, you know, music aside for a little bit, or what does a day look like right now for you?
Seneca, you know, with the passage of these months, I have, you know, 6 different answers for you based on different months, different projects and things. But the long and the short of it is that, you know, we have 3 kids and 2 dogs at home. And my wife, Esty, is still employed. She's working remotely as a nurse. And she's also a student right now. She's
Oh, wow. Very busy then.
she's working toward her master's. So she's been doing online school. So, and I've been practicing and setting up concerts for for this coming season and setting up my chamber music camp. So we both have a lot of hours to log, but we also want to cherish this time with our kids. So it's funny. We almost sound like negotiators each morning. You know, I'll take 9:30 to 11, you take 11:30 to 12:30, then we're both off for the nap, then 3 o'clock, but we're having great times with the kids. And I hate to sound corny, but man, we're eating healthy food, and we're hearing the birds sing, and we keep going on these hikes. Our 2-year-old Gabriel is nuts about going on hiking trails. He cries no matter how long we stay. He cries when we have to leave, and we just feel this unbelievable kind of reconnection that's hard when you're going from one airplane to another. So it's strange to talk about something nice coming out of something that's been so horrible for so many people around the globe, but it's been good to reconnect, and just so hungry to get back to practicing, and I mean performing. I've been practicing, and diving back in and trying to preserve something of what these 4 months have been like,
Yeah.
but also returning to that greatest joy.
I'm curious, have you been binge watching anything? Have you, like you said, you're cooking healthier or eating healthier? Are you doing, some more cooking? Are there books that always sat on the shelf that you're like, oh, I finally have a little bit of time to pick those up? Or, what else fills your time these days?
Early in the quarantine, I thought, if there's ever another quarantine when I don't have all these kids at home, I'm gonna just sit down and read the complete works of Charles Dickens. But it's that aspect of it has been a nightmare. But we've gotten really good at cooking. I honestly am kind of dreading eating out a lot, because we've been doing so much cooking. I learned how to do our own smoked salmon, and it's just heavenly. And we've been grilling out a lot here and making salads. And we didn't binge watch anything, but our older kids, our 9 and 14-year-olds, Elise and Jack, they got a taste of Star Wars.
Oh, very nice.
So then we had to watch 9 or 10 movies.
Yeah.
4, 5, 6, then back to 1, 2, 3 with Rogue One in there, and then jump to the horrible last 3. Oh man, with the new Rise of Skywalker. And it's so sweet. The 9-year-old just stayed invested the whole time and just stayed with it. But Esty and I were really struggling with that one.
One thing I saw that came out during this quarantine was you and James have been recording some of the Beethoven sonatas, that you said you'll be playing this summer for Aspen and some of the other places. What's it like to have a big budget studio recording that, obviously you'd worked on before, and was there discussion about holding it, or was it, we really should get this out, or what's that kind of like, I guess?
Oh, I don't remember discussion about holding it. I do think that where the rise of professional recordings, through the 60s, 70s, 80s, just went berserk in the second half of the 20th century. And all of a sudden there were 20 perfect performances of every,
Basically any
Chopin
piece.
etude. Yeah. It was interesting how the technology kind of shaped the public taste in a way, just as the public taste can shape what how people want their recordings to sound. But that recording the ability to edit things, I heard about an infamous case of a very famous pianist who has great technique, recorded Chopin etudes, and the first etude is 1 minute and 58 seconds, so 118 seconds, and apparently had like 100 edit points in it. And so it's really a Frankenstein monster kind of situation. And so anyway, I think that the taste really did go to this. People wanted perfection in concerts too. There was a taste in a lot of the old timers in the 80s and 90s, who were already old timers, would complain. They said, nobody likes an imperfect performance with great character and poetry anymore. Everybody wants perfection because of the CD age. So what, in a very long-winded way, what I'm getting to is that I think that the internet and blogs and TikTok and everything in between have slowly changed the taste a little bit, where people have a taste for authenticity. And so I think that there has been an appetite for a lot of the things that have been put up very hastily on the internet, and many of them too hastily. And I think at the end of the day, we're going to come to a place where we're hunting for a combination of the two more. And I think it's fascinating to me to see how technology changes the taste. And I should say that's one thing I just love about recording with James. The way that we rehearse is the same as for a performance.
Mm-hmm.
It's always just striving for these artistic and expressive ideals to our utmost. And that's something that is just deeply in his blood. And then when we record, I feel that his recordings, they don't sound safe and careful. They are immaculate, but they're immaculate performances. And he gave me great advice before I even started my own first recording years and years ago. He said, don't play safe in any single take. Play your dream, even if you might fall in a fiery ball, because you'll get to try it again. So always go for it expressively, do everything you dreamt of doing. And so that's one reason that I love recording with him so much. And I don't feel that he falls into that trap of producing recordings like those things that sometimes in the 80s and 90s, we all felt, who's who, everybody sounds like the same computerized Frankenstein monster.
Yeah. Well, I want to say thank you so much for joining us this afternoon, early evening for you back home in Massachusetts. But we're very much looking forward to the festival, having you here in Seattle, getting a chance to share this music with our audience here, but also being able to reach new audiences, I think, with this new format that, people that may never have been able to get to Seattle for whatever reason can get a little taste of what makes this such a special festival.
That's a nice thought. I hope it has that effect. That'd be nice.